Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky. With me as always is the maestro of mail order mysteries, Eddie Guevara. Today, the house opens its doors to Todd, King of the Sea Monkeys Machen, Dr. Roberto Boyajian, and newcomer, Jeff Masisa. Hope I said your last names right, guys. I hope I didn't butcher them too bad, but how's everyone doing tonight?
Very good.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, let's start. We'll go around the room here. Todd.
Yeah.
What's new with you, brother? It's been a long time since we heard from you. How's the Sea Monkey Kingdom holding up?
Yeah, no, everything's doing good in Sea Monkey land. We've launched some new products. There's Sea Monkey Magic Sand just came out at seamonkeys.com. And we got a children's puzzle that's coming out soon. And we did a 60th anniversary mug for 2020 was the 60th anniversary of Sea Monkeys, so we did a limited edition 60th anniversary mug based on the original artwork for the first Sea Monkey card. We did just a limited edition of 60 in honor of the 60th anniversary, and I think we're down to like about 6 are left, so they sold quick.
Awesome. Now, that Sea Monkey sand, is that anything special, or is it just sand to put at the bottom of your aquarium?
No, what it is, Joe, is it's a spin-off of the old Dracula's soil from Dracula's castle that was advertised in the old Warren publication, Monster magazines.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Roberto.
That was some of the inspiration.
Here we are.
Okay. Hey, Roberto, for people that didn't hear you on our last podcast, you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself that might be their first time listening?
Right. I'm a medical doctor, internal medicine. I take care of adults, and my real interest is getting people healthy so they could live long lives without a lot of medical intervention. Everybody's become a whole victim of the system, and that's what this COVID produced. So I really look at the whole system as this is a critical time for people to look at their health, because this is one pandemic. This can happen again. You can get a vaccine, but the virus can mutate. It might not protect you. So the most important thing is learn how to get healthy, and that's what I teach my patients. That's what I practice myself. So I hope to continue doing this for another 15 years. That's what I told my wife. We can retire to Florida then.
Awesome.
She's waiting.
Oh, I'm sure she is. And if anybody out there hasn't heard our last podcast with Dr. Boyajian on it, take a look at it. He has some great medical advice towards the end there for you, free of charge, of course. And we have our newcomer, Jeff Masisa, I believe it is. Did I say that right, Jeff?
You're pretty close.
Masisa. Jeff, you're the newcomer here. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, maybe some of your interests, and go from there.
Well, I'm a little bit in the similar industry as Roberto there in the medical industry. I'm from the other end where we allow the industry to be medical doctors. So I do a medical management company specializing in dermatology, where we do skin cancer. So we go ahead and try to promote proper medicine, proper care, so that the patients themselves can take care of their skin to the best they can. And if they do have any issues, we can utilize Mohs surgery and take care of their skin issues. So it's a pleasure to be on.
Awesome. And I want to thank you guys again for coming on and joining us. We got some great topics tonight. So Eddie, what's new over at the House of the Unusual headquarters?
Well, everything's going as planned, Joe. Everything's going as planned. Now, one of the exciting things I am hearing right now is we have Dr. Robert here, who he's able to, help guys live better and stuff. And we have Jeff here, who apparently has all this dermatological stuff. Now, what I think it's good about this is you see Todd being the king of the sea monkeys like he is. He has emerged where his skin has gone rough from going in and out of the water. So I think it falls into place where he can get
Yeah.
help now. So Todd, you're in good hands, man.
I
We're
have
looking
these
out for
strange
you.
scales on my back. I don't know what that might be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Todd, with the two doctors on now, maybe you could offer your sea monkey people some health care or something now, and they don't have to be left in the
Yeah,
wind.
there you go.
Eddie, what was that movie?
Or
The
under the
creature
water.
from the Black Lagoon? Was that a movie?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that is the early life of Todd Machen before he got into.
Yeah, correct. Before he,
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite old monster movies.
He had like a rubber suit on. He's underwater and he grabbed the woman or something.
Yeah.
And there were like 10 people on the boat. I remember this was a horrible. It looked so bad. It was like the worst movie you ever saw.
Oh, those might be fighting words for some people.
No, it was so bad.
No,
that
well,
it was good.
you know
couldn't
some-
stop watching it.
here's the thing, and Jeff, I bet you Jeff knows this, but one of the guys that appeared in that movie, the first time a famous actor ever appeared on television was in
Lloyd
that
Bridges.
movie. And
Lloyd
that was
Bridges.
Clint Eastwood. No,
Oh.
Clint Eastwood, where he played the
Really?
scientist in the original Creature. That's the first time he ever
Eddie,
appeared
let
on
me ask you
television.
something. Why did all these science fiction movies come out in the 50s? What was it about? Was it about a whole nuclear age or something? Godzilla? What was the time? Why was that so interesting then?
I think Joe can answer that better than I would.
I would have to say that it was, you had horror movies. They were always very popular, but they started getting real, science fiction-y, I guess, in the 50s and 60s, and I believe that came from the atomic age. Once we dropped the bomb, you had kind of the science fiction explosion there. I mean, you always had the pulp magazines that dealt with sci-fi and all that, and some of them were hardcore sci-fi, some were very kid-like, but you had kind of like a niche audience with that. But once the atomic age hit, these Hollywood producers, they really capitalized on the fear that people had. Then you start having the space race, so they capitalized off of that as well. And it's just like anything, just like today, whatever the social zeitgeist is, that's what the movies start playing off of, because that's what the people want.
Did that
So
all start in Japan with the Godzilla thing, or no?
Well, Godzilla definitely started due to the atomic bombs and all that, but no, I believe it definitely started in Hollywood, because it was the big production company at the that's where they had all the big production companies, Universal and all the Poverty Row companies. So they were just pumping out sci-fi stuff because people, you're just coming off of the Great Depression, few decades after that, and so people were looking for work, and they were just pumping out movies, whether they were cheap or bad.
Were they cheap to make? Was that a big issue? They could knock them out quick.
So some of them were, and some of them were big budget productions. It all depends on the production company. If you were a big name production company like Universal, you had the backing for it. But if you were some type of Poverty Row fly by night company, you had a few bucks, and a lot of those directors at the time were known as one take directors. Whether you got it right or not, they took one take and that was it. Moved on, because you had such a low budget, and you didn't have much money for good actors or for good special effects or for even a good writer. So you kind of worked with what you could.
So the Creature from the Black Lagoon was like a low budget movie.
No, that would have actually been a more of a high, I guess maybe you could consider it a medium budget or something for the time. There was a lot of money that was definitely put in the suit and all that, and the the different backdrops and all that. But it was pretty simply made for that time. Yeah, it wouldn't have been too much. Nothing like today where they're pumping out hundreds of millions of dollars.
What year did Creature come out?
1954 was the original.
Because I'm thinking about even like King Kong going back to 1933 as being a real early, kind of monster movie, and that looks low budget, but that was a pretty big budget film with all that stop motion animation and all the special effects they developed for that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you start getting into stop motion, I mean, you're, even though it may be, very simple designs and all that, you got to look at, the time that those special effects people are putting into it, because you have to pay them for their time. And, as we all know, stop motion takes a very long time to, just get a minute's worth of
Are those
footage.
puppets or they're hand drawings? Drawings, the stop motion.
No, they're all kind of like
three-dimensional, articulated figures.
Yeah, they had kind of like a metal skeleton, and then they would put clay, maybe some hair and some clothing over them, and they would move them very slightly, stop, take a picture, move it slightly again, and yeah, it was very tedious work. So
it's funny you guys are talking about that, and Jeff was telling me that he's a certified diver. Is this correct, Jeff?
That is correct.
Have you ever seen the creature from the Black Lagoon? That's what we want to know.
I think I'm going to see it if I start diving in the Hudson River now.
It's a very high-end discussion here.
You might see some different stuff in the Hudson River. I don't know if it's...
Is anybody listening to us tonight?
Oh my God.
Well, you go all the way back. I mean, you have similar issues with Area 51, so you never know what you're going to get.
Jeff, what was the craziest thing that you seen or discovered while diving? Have you come across anything?
Chasing, I really was excited about chasing after this long fish. It was pretty exciting, and until the captain said, "Leave the barracuda alone," So you kind of. You grow up quick, If they don't want to be bothered, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Jeff, when you dive, do you have a spear gun or some protection, or?
Yeah, they're fins, so I can swim away as fast as possible.
It's a fight or flight, and he chooses the flight.
You want to weigh yourself down with all of this ammunition that
you don't swim with sharks, do you?
I tried to, but it doesn't work too well.
Have you ever seen Todd riding a sea monkey down there?
No, I've been looking for sea monkeys, but I mean, usually they're just on the kitchen counter. I don't have to go far to find them.
Here's the best part, Jeff. The best part is that Todd has been developing, what he calls the invisible goldfish. So try to see if you ever see one of them down there.
Well, I think he's doing a really good job with it.
Could you sell an invisible goldfish? Eddie could sell it. He could sell anything. No.
Yeah, really. Eddie would make millions off of it.
Well,
I need to get one of those submarines to find it.
Forget about it. You'll never get that submarine.
Eddie, you have any submarines?
Hey, Jeff.
Dying here. Go get it.
Jeff, now that we have Todd on here, we have this. We have to tell you this story that this little kind of prank that Eddie did to us, and I'm sure Todd knows what I'm talking about. So Eddie, from time to time, will send us packages of of collectible stuff or books, toys or whatever. So I get one day a box, nice size box, and it says House of the Unusable on it instead of unusual. I'm like, okay, what is this? And I pick up the box. I'm like, man, this feels really light. I'm like, what the heck could be in here? I'm shaking it. I don't hear anything. I'm like, what the heck could he have put in here that's so light? So I cut it open. I'm like, well, maybe it's some paper stuff, maybe, a photo or, some old papers or something. So I gingerly, cut the box open and open it. I don't want to mess anything up. So I go rip through, take out the paper, the packaging. There's nothing in the box. He sent me an empty box.
There's two. I think what happened is
he also sent Todd an empty box.
Yeah,
there's two Eddies. There's the nice Eddie and the bad Eddie. That was the bad Eddie.
Yeah.
You must have done something to upset him.
Eddie, what was the reason? What was the reason behind the empty?
Well, you know how they always say there's a mystery behind everything, and there's nothing more than intriguing than when you open a box and you think it's a mystery, what's inside. So if you don't get anything, you basically have to wait for the next box to come in. I just wanted to cross the fun part of how you guys like to receive things by the mail. And I figured, this is going to be a good one. I know I had you guys that you never forgot it to this day. So,
That
I
affects
mean,
your review on
Todd,
Yelp.
well, Todd, let me get this correct, Todd. I believe you're working on a film. So did you introduce that to the film?
What's that?
Did you introduce the empty box to the film?
Oh yeah.
Or did you tell them about
it? Yeah, I've talked about the empty box quite a bit, I have to say.
You
still have it.
the
I
box.
still have it. It's still empty.
I threw mine right in the trash. I said, you know what? This is where it goes. So,
Hey, you know something we're talking about. It was so funny because we started talking about the creature and everything, and I probably Jeff knows this, and maybe I know Dr. Boyaji might know, but there were two people as actors. One of them would go under the ocean, and the other guy was just on top. So you had the two actors. Then you also had, there was a movie that was done in the early 60s or 50s called The Atomic Submarine. And it became popular right after the atomic age began with, what Joe had said. The Atomic Submarine was such a low budget film that when they showed the submarine, you can actually see a thin, very thin stick underneath the submarine as it travels to the water.
yeah, that was in 59 that came out.
Well, that's a pretty good film, to be honest with you. It's not bad. It's just that the graphics
Who was in that
are,
movie?
my gosh,
I missed
man.
that.
Just like
I'm looking at it right
you-
now. Arthur Franz was one of the main characters, and Dick Ferran, Brett Hazley. So it doesn't seem like there was really any big names in it, but they had a budget of $135,000. So I'm sure it wasn't nothing too big. I'm sure that stick cost probably a majority of the budget.
well, even the first Superman, when he takes off, the very first Superman before George Reeves, you could see a stick as he's flying through the air. I mean, that's really like the cheapest.
When was
films
that, in the
I guess
30s? This
they could
first
really
Superman?
get. Now, I don't remember. No, I think
Well, I
it's
know
the
that they
40s.
used to use, when he would fly, they would quickly transition it to like a cartoon drawing, and had like the cartoon flying, and then when it would look like it land, they would have the actor, jumping from a platform to make it look like, Superman's landing. But I tell you what's some good special effects on flying. If anyone ever sees the Captain Marvel serial, I can't remember what year it was. I believe it was the 40s, but the Lydecker brothers did the special effects, and they actually had a life-size dummy, and they put one string on one end of a canyon and another on the other, and they had this dummy going down it. And I tell you what, it looks beautiful. It looks like somebody's actually flying. I mean, it's really cool to see what someone could do with, a low budget. Was just amazing. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'm going to say, especially when we were talking about diving and stuff like that, Jeff, you in particular, have you ever gone like diving for
Yes.
lost treasure or any of that stuff? And I'm just kind of curious because we were talking about that when you were hearing the podcast with Alan on, that he was one of the divers for the famous Antorcha Gold.
No, I've gone down about 125 feet, but I haven't gone to
for fun.
Any real discoveries at this point. It's more
that's
recreational. And it's still amazing what you have when you have the sunken artifacts that are below for many, many years. But I can't imagine, like you said, with
I think it'd be amazing to dive. I mean, it's got to be like a whole different universe down there. I mean, from what we can't see.
Yeah. Where do you go diving, Jeff? Yeah.
Well, that's where they found
mainly
the
along the Florida Keys.
60 feet of water off the Florida Keys. So it was there for 400 years and nobody found it until 1985 when Mel Fisher found it. But, I think it was actually before 85 they found it, but in 1985 they started bringing it up. One of the things that also leads to that is that when you have anything with diving and stuff like that, When you said Area 51 before that you mentioned, and I just wanted to bring up the topic. Did any of you guys recently heard about 2 to 3 weeks ago, one of the, I believe it was American Airlines or Delta, one of the pilots actually saw two things happen. Back in October, they saw off of Kennedy Airport or something, some guy flying in some type of spacesuit, 3,000 feet in the air. And the FBI was looking into it because it was seen by a couple of the pilots. But the other thing that was kind of crazy is that they saw an actual flying saucer, and it came out in the news about 3 weeks ago. Have any of you guys heard anything on that?
No, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen. I think you mentioned it to me when we spoke last week, but I haven't heard anything else about it.
Did you hear, Jeff, anything on it? Jeff?
Maybe he's disconnected.
Jeff?
I haven't heard anything on
It seems connected. Oh, did you hear anything about that?
Oh, I'm here. I didn't hear anything about it, and I'm connected.
I thought we lost you there for a second. I said maybe one of those diving expedition might have taken.
Artificial intelligence is taking over.
No, I was looking for my box.
I was going to say that they actually said, and this was on television in WOR, and I think it was in 1010 Wednesdays when I heard it, that there was an actual, this happened about 3 weeks ago, that the airplane pilot said that there was a flying saucer flying above and on the side of the plane at 30,000 feet. And it was, it made the news, so it was official. It's kind of like when they came out officially saying that the United States has been looking into the flying saucer, enigma, and they even started a new. What's the name of the new chapter?
What on MUFON?
Is it MUFON? No, it's not MUFON.
I don't know. I didn't hear if there was a new chapter. If they're always adding different stuff to it.
They have, but they have a new group of people that study flying saucers. Is it called aerial phenomenon?
Unknown aerial phenomenon, UAP.
They have a new
that goes by now. Yeah, because a lot of people were sending in Freedom of Information Act requests and asking about UFOs and giving specific dates and asking for unidentified flying objects, and they were getting rejected because now the government's calling them unidentified aerial phenomenon. So if you send in a FOIA request, you have to ask for unidentified aerial phenomenons in order to get it back. Because if you send in for UFO, more than likely they'll deny the request. So it's typical government work, especially with UFOs. They, some wordplay so that way they could kind of circumvent the disclosure of information. I kind of think, they're supposed to be, what was that, after 180 days, they're supposed to disclose a bunch of information on UFOs. But from a lot that I've been reading about that is it's going to be very mundane stuff, and it's going to be nothing that's going to blow people's minds. It's going to be enough to kind of maybe whet the appetite of some people and maybe quench the appetite of others, but it's nothing going to be.
Which, Eddie, where was this pilot? Where did he see this? Like it was over the Midwest?
I don't know if it was over the Midwest. I know the guy that they saw in a rocket belt was over either LaGuardia or Kennedy, and it was serious enough that the FBI took into
what was the guy doing?
They were doing some investigations on it, because he was flying with a jetpack, and the pilot of one of the big airlines saw him.
No, you can't do that with a jetpack.
30,000 feet in the air. So well, that's what's weird. And they started.
I'm looking at right now. They said that pilot reports seeing a man on a jetpack near Los Angeles airport, second time this year, and it's saying that his plane was about 6,000 feet up, and that the jetpack was approximately 3,000 feet.
Oh, well, that's
pretty high. I mean.
How high can a jetpack go?
I don't. You know what? Doc,
I don't know.
I think we had a conversation about this on one of the other podcasts about jetpacks and all that. And, when we talk about technology and everything, and a lot of people, say, what we know about the government is 25 years, ahead of us in technology. But, a lot of other people say that it's, anywhere from 50 to 100 or more years ahead of us. So, we could be seeing somebody with a jetpack that could go to 3,000 feet, and they may have technology of a jetpack that could go in space. I mean, you never know.
They used to have a jetpack remember on Lost in Space?
Well,
what's his name? Professor Robinson. He was flying around on the jetpack.
Let me tell you about Lost in Space. I just got the DVD set, and it's remastered. And he was out in space with his jetpack, and you could clearly see every wire connected to him and everything with the remastered one. I mean, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, it is clear as day that you could see all the wires, and I mean, it's still, it is what it is for the time. But yeah, anytime they're in space or on their jetpacks, you could clearly see the wires attached.
Was never real.
Wish it was. Maybe it was.
No, there was one episode where somebody got lost and he went out looking for him, but he actually was in a jetpack. It wasn't fake.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
No, there was one episode. It was early on where somebody got lost and they had the chariot, and he took the jetpack and he went looking. But I think Will Robinson got lost.
Well, the problem with jetpacks is back in the day when they had the jetpacks, is that they couldn't last more than 30 seconds. In other words, it would work,
right,
but the fuel will burn out within 30 seconds. And that's why you made it, I don't know, 3 minutes maybe. It didn't make it feasible for the Army or anybody to use it. It's been around now. It's funny that we're talking about this because one time I ran an ad in Popular Mechanics back in the late 80s, and it was for a jetpack. And one of the guys who sent away for the jetpack, I'm sorry, not Popular Mechanic, on eBay, late 90s actually. The guy buys the thing. I send him the plans, which are legitimate plans, but the cost would be almost $1 million to put together. So the guy wanted his money back because he says
that must be the guy with the treasure map that's looking for you, Eddie.
Yeah,
wants his money back.
Yeah, Eddie sent me a treasure map, and I still have yet to find treasure. So I don't know what I'm going to do. It might be
he has enemies out there. He doesn't know it.
Give it to Jeff. Maybe Jeff now with his diving, he can find it off the Florida Keys.
I'm still looking for my box.
Well, I hope you don't get a box from Eddie because it might just be empty.
Then I'll get the treasure.
You guys did something to tick him off. That's why he sent that to you. He's very vindictive when he gets upset at you.
No.
I guess so, man. I've never seen that side of him.
I haven't known him that long.
But hey, Jeff, since you're the newcomer on here, and have you ever gotten into any of because we talk about magic and mail order novelties. I don't know how old you are, but when you were younger, did you ever get into any of the mail order stuff, like from the comic books or magazines?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that was right up there. I mean, I was born in the early 60s, so I'm probably older than most of you gentlemen. Everything from the X-ray glasses and everything to the back of the comic books, of course.
Yeah, he got some good stuff.
That's where Eddie brings
I recently
back
got
childhood
a pair of the X-ray glasses that I've been wanting, since the 80s, and they lived up to all the hype, I guess.
What year were you born, Jeff?
I
think we got you beat by a couple there.
Well, Eddie was born in the 40s, so I think he got all of us.
Oh, yeah. Eddie should have been born 20 years before he was. He would have been the king then. He put them all out of business. It's interesting you talk about the back of the magazine. I lived in that fantasy world. You'd see that stuff, and it was unbelievable. Then you'd start thinking about it, and then you go into some kind of fantasy about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really stoked your imagination.
Absolutely. Doc, what was your favorite? Did you have a favorite mail
Here's
order
what
item?
it was. There was this watch, and it was like an imitation chronograph. It had like 3 dials on it, and I wanted this watch. My mother said, "That's a piece of junk. You can't have it." I never got the watch. It looked like it was like a pilot's watch, and it had a leather strap. I always wanted this watch. I couldn't have it, so I got obsessed with watches later on, and now I have a few real ones, but I never got that watch. Probably if I did, it would have been a disappointment. So,
Hey, Jeff, did you have a favorite mail order item that you either had or that you always wanted? Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, back then you wanted one of each, so you never could get enough. But
oh yeah,
I really think. I mean,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Eddie, that's there you
now
go.
is I always wanted.
Eddie got the submarine.
Well,
I
the
love
thing is, Dr.
submarines. And my mother
Boyadin
said that's a
too
piece
wanted
of
the
junk. That's
right,
all
Doc?
cardboard. You
Roberto?
can't have it. Just stop wasting your time. And then she'd start thinking about it more because you couldn't have it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what's so funny about the submarine? That the submarine has become an obsession to a lot of people. In fact, I believe, according to what everything has been concluded, that probably I'm the only one that has one left, probably in the world. Um, Mine is still unbuilt in its original condition, and people have been tracking every collector that I know of for the last 40, 50 years for even photographs of it. When I started doing the unboxing, which a lot of people gave me thumbs down because they wanted me to build it. And I'm like, why would I build something you only have one? And, I've been offered a lot of money for that, including, the possibility of appearing in Pawn Stars, where I told Rick I would want about
Yeah, the
50,000
best I
for
could
it.
do is $10.
And then the COVID kind of threw it off the 10 bucks.
Hey, Todd, I can't remember if we asked you. Have you always
Well,
been into the sea monkeys, or was there a different mail order item that you really liked as a kid, or one that you always wanted that never had? I don't remember if we ever
No, it was
discussed
Sea
that.
Monkeys for me all the way. That was the ad that really captured my imagination, and I sent away and I waited by the mailbox for I don't know a good couple of months, and I got them and I was disappointed, and I tried them and they failed, and I was still excited, and so I just kept trying, and I've been trying for the past 5 decades. Yep.
Hey, Todd, with the invisible goldfish, is it anytime soon?
Now,
Or?
you're laughing, but yes,
I'm just kinda
we're
curious.
actually coming out with invisible goldfish.
That's what I'm asking. When?
Only you guys could come
The
up with
reason I'm
something like
asking-
that.
Because I think no. Well, here's the thing. I know Todd is here, but he promised to send them to me, and I don't know if he did because I
He
could
did
have gotten. I
send them.
never
They
even
were in
knew
that
about
box,
it.
that
It's
empty
at the
box.
back there, the box. Yeah, that's good.
No, let me go. Here's the background on invisible goldfish.
Well,
Harold von Braunhat, he came out with Sea Monkeys in 1960, and he was having trouble getting anybody to be interested in them. And so retailers, were saying like, yeah, I don't know, we don't really believe this is, And so he thought to himself, he's like, well, I'll give them something that, guaranteed that they won't be able to see. So he created this product called Invisible Goldfish. That was 1966. And it comes with a little fish bowl and all of the little components. And I have to say, it didn't do very well. It wasn't out for a very long time. But now that his wife Yolanda is at the helm, we're going to reissue Invisible Goldfish for the first time since 1966. It's called Invisible Goldfish 2.0. And it hasn't launched on the website yet, but very soon you'll be able to go to seamonkeys.com and buy your very own invisible goldfish.
Well, let me give Jeff, if you're not aware of it, Harold Van Brohut was the guy who invented the sea monkeys, and he probably has over 200 patents to his name, and he also invented the X-ray glasses. and he's been selling sea monkeys and X-ray glasses till he passed away many years ago, where he found Todd as a baby in his pool, and he figured, he saw some scales on him, and that's when Todd took over the empire. So,
well, I see. I understand what he does. So you have to buy the X-ray glasses in order to see the invisible goldfish.
Yeah.
well,
Todd, that
here's
could
the
be a
best part.
a package right there, man.
Now
X-ray
I
glasses,
understand why I never
invisible
saw them. It
What's so
is.
funny about it? That people don't believe Todd when I tell them
Yeah.
that the sea monkeys are still a $6 million a year business.
Yeah, but I'm not. I'm a little confused. My sea monkeys worked. I watched them every day, and they swam
I don't know.
around.
Todd
your
sent
guys,
me mine,
maybe you
and
got
mine
the
lived
empty
for
box.
like a day or two, and then they were gone. So they were defective.
Well, you know, let me tell you, talking about being vindictive and stuff, Todd knows I love everything from Sunken Treasures and that. He sends everybody a free gift of sea monkeys, and he sends Alan down in California and his daughter one with a sunken pirate ship, and he sends me one that's just plain. I mean, all I could do was look at that and
like Charlie
slap
Brown,
my
I got
head
a
and
rock.
myself, like, really? Why couldn't I? You know what? Jeff? Jeff, when I was little and I had my first sea monkeys, it didn't do too well, but I did. I kind of cheated because I went to a fish store over in Washington Heights, New York, where I grew up. And when I got to the food store, this was really funny. I mean, the fish store, I asked the guy and I said, "Hey, do you have sea monkeys?" And the guy goes, "Yes, I do." And it was brine shrimp, but he gave them to me for 50 cents on a little plastic container that they were fully grown, and there were like 1,000 of them in there. So I went home and dumped them into my sea monkey thing, and I had them. And I had them for years. I did try to grow when my son was very small. I bought him a set, and we were doing it. And then my wife was washing or something, and she knocked it on the floor, and she filled it with water and put it back up. And I didn't know. So I'm saying, why are my sea monkeys
The
not
invisible
growing?
sea monkeys.
And then my brother-in-law did the same thing.
What did it come in, a
but-
small packet, like you
But
ripped
they
it
do
open?
work. I mean,
Yeah,
I think what happened with Joe,
easy
Like a little packet.
Yeah, you start with the water purifier. You purify the water, and it adds kind of a salt content to it. And then packet number 2 is the actual sea monkey eggs, and then they hatch instantly and will continue hatching over the next 3 weeks. And then packet number 3 is the growth food, and you feed them weekly. And
This is bringing back memories. I didn't remember it, but I think I got them at one point.
yeah,
I remember ripping open a little packet.
yeah. The product it didn't start out very good, but they've really honed the ingredients on that. And sea monkey.
What are they actually? It's a shrimp, a form of shrimp?
Yeah, it's brine shrimp or Artemia salina.
I guess we all did this. I don't remember it, but I guess coming back now, yeah, probably we did get them.
It's all coming back to you, to Doc. It's all coming back.
What they're used for, Doc, what they're used for is fish. A lot of fish stores grow them to feed goldfish and to feed the fish, because it's kind of like a live. It's kind of like if you have a lizard and you feed them crickets. It's the same thing. That's what it does. Now, what Harold did, though, I think what made Harold a legend in his time is that basically Harold
sounds like one of your
that
friends.
would sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh my God.
And what he did, though, is definitely a friend of mine. Well, at least I remember when I told him at the time when I first met him, he definitely sat me down in the chair and gave me the runaround. But what happened is that the picture in the comic book is what sold it. Whoever came out with the idea of making a sea monkey look like it was like little characters, and they were going to go. And then when they said you can train them, and what it is they react to light. And if you take a flashlight, they actually all follow the light in a dark room. It's really weird the
Yeah,
way
I
they
think
do
so
it.
too.
But you know
Did
what,
it look
Doc?
like
I
a
think you should get
seahorse? Did
yourself a
the
set of sea
advertisement look
monkeys.
like a
Hey,
seahorse or no?
yeah,
I
I
did
think
those. I got those.
So there was
no,
another one with the seahorse, no?
Yeah.
no,
All right.
yeah, but I never got those because seahorses are boring.
Yeah,
All
they
they
have,
do is
Eddie,
just
they
limp
have,
Eddie,
around
let
the
me ask
water.
you
They do
something.
absolutely
The
nothing.
people that listen to your show, they're all
And you
in
know,
our generation, or do you think there's a younger audience out there too?
hey, listen,
You have no
I'm the youngest
12-year-olds
one here in
listening
the
to the
crowd,
show.
so yeah, it's more like the generation of you guys.
Yeah, I wonder that's interesting. I wonder if we do, and I wonder
All my
if if there's a younger generation listening to us and it's inspired them to look into mail order novelties or even to sea monkeys. So Todd, my question for you would be, do you guys see like a lot of like younger people getting the sea monkeys, or is it mostly people trying to relive their childhood that places the orders with
well,
you guys?
yeah.
Well,
There we
to
go.
be
That
honest with
too.
you, I think the younger
No,
generation
they
needs to learn how to read a
it's
comic book,
interesting because
and then maybe they'll
60
see the
years and sea
advertisement.
monkeys have never been off the market. So it's sort of one of those products that has just continued to reinvent itself to appeal to whatever the current generation is. So Dragon Eye Toys, they're the ones that do the mass market products. They sell the kits to retail stores and things like that. So that's really the big bulk of the business. And then what Yolanda does at the Montrose Farm is more cottage industry things that she does mail order. And so that's where we're doing the things like magic sand and invisible goldfish and things.
You know, I think what it
Yeah.
is, a lot of things is parents see it and buy it for their
Yeah.
children. That's when that I think answers your question, Robert, because the thing with that is when you have, let's say me, I go and I see it, I buy it for my grandson, and that's the situation. But the honest truth is, when you look at the analytics of our show,
Oh, all right.
it's between the ages of 35 and 62. And then we have that's 80% of the watchers. The other 20 are over the age of 65. And then there's like a 5% segment between 30 and 40,
Right.
which falls again, like, because I guess the youngest person here is Joe. And you see, this is what I said to Joe. I forgot if I told you, Dr. Boyadin, or I mean, Robert, or who I did, but Joe and Kirk Damaris, who wrote the book Mail Order Mysteries, that sold over 1 million plus copies. Those two things,
Right.
or those two guys, were born in the early 80s,
Right.
at the end of the mail order generation, and they got into comic books. They wanted to order their stuff, and then apparently they got a letter saying it's out of business because it was just a couple years prior to that they were still in business. Me, myself, being 58, Doc, you're what, 65 now, going to turn, and you got Todd over there, 62, whatever. You're basically
And half. I'll be 65 in June, technically. I'm still 64. I don't know. You want to know something?
Yeah, don't push it too
I still
far.
feel
Yeah,
like I'm 18, though.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Todd's been feeling 18
No,
ever since he's
right.
been
And I
doing
think
the
that's
Empire.
why people
I mean,
of our generation, I mean, they call it a midlife crisis, but you do kind of reach a point where you kind of try to recapture some of those moments from your childhood. And
you know what it is? That's the only time in your life you're truly happy. You have no responsibilities. You do whatever you want. You have a good time. Nobody tells you what to do.
yeah.
That's it. After that, it's just responsibility day after day. So that's why you look back on it.
Well, and the other thing is back then, like you were saying earlier on the show, the parents had the control. They really monitored the purse strings. So you might want something, but getting the money out of them to order it, was near impossible sometimes. So but now that, so when you're an adult and you have your own disposable income, you can buy whatever you want.
Right.
You know what's funny about that, Todd, is I tell my wife this all the time. I said, back, before I met her and I was maybe in my mid-20s or so, there's times where, I was still, working several jobs part-time, doing security and bartending, whatever I could do to, pay the bills. And I would have, some extra money, say an extra $50-$100 or so. And I would, look at my refrigerator and say, man, I have no food, but man, there's some comic books I want. Do I want to spend it on food or comic books? And, I went hungry for, some days.
Some would call that a passion. Some would say it's insanity.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Well,
Eddie's been doing that since he got married.
You know what?
Yeah, he
He's
just did
still
that this
doing it.
week.
The boxes are
I
still
think-
coming to his house.
You know what? The best thing is I can tell you guys is put by one person, a good friend of ours, which goes by the name of Dr. Saab. He basically is the one that sent me an email that I think he worded the event the best possible way. In the email, he put here this one phrase. He put, "I have enjoyed our conversations about the mail order world and items we cherish from our childhood. I also enjoy being part of House of the Unusual Forum, battering whatever with you, Todd and Joe. Somehow, here's the part. Somehow it magically brings me back to my childhood days when the only responsibility I had was being a kid with an enormous imagination." Okay? That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that day when
No.
on,
It
Doc,
was one
didn't
of
you
those
say one
old
time
black
that you took
telephones with all the
your
buttons on
dad's
it.
cell phone or something?
And I turned it into a spaceship, like the control panel for a spaceship. And I would hit the red buttons. One was for takeoff, one's for landing, one's for flying in space. And you create a whole world about that.
Well, we know what you're doing tonight, Doc.
I told
don't
my
we?
daughters about it. I said, "Dad, that's so cute."
I remember. I took, let me put it the honest way. I remember when I was like 8 years old, I took I forgot what, a box. I forgot if it was a box from whatever. And I cut a door out of it, and I remember making it into a spaceship, a car, a bus. I would have my cousin, where my grandmother used to take care of my cousin sometimes, and she would ride in back of the car. We had such imaginations without any video games, without any television. Because, back then you did see TV. You saw Warner Brothers, Bugs
Oh, I remember
Bunny,
Felix
and
with
all
his
that
bag
stuff.
of
But one of my
tricks.
favorite ones was Felix the Cat. And the reason I used to like Felix the Cat was, but remember when he used to have all the space travel videos that he would always go with Dr. I forgot, Dr. Rockbottom or something like that. They would go out into space. And then there was this thing called the Master Cylinder, which looked like a can that had big eyes. And
He
was
had
always
some
in the
bag.
moon.
He had a bag of tricks, right?
That was very fascinating for me as a kid.
I
And
created
my
my own
world
bag of tricks.
revolved.
I would carry that
Yeah,
around
he
with
could
me.
take anything out of the back. He could convert it into a space. I did too, Doc. I did too. You want me to tell you something?
I remember
That
those
also
two. In the
came
car. They had a car.
later on in Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse. What? Yeah, remember? And but he would take out of this bag all sorts of different guns, weapons, a gun for everything. And the way I would make that gun is I would take clay and model the clay after the gun from Courageous Cat. But we just have
Well, I
all
used
the
to use
imagination. We lived life
what are those? The
more
Pringles
simple.
cans. And I would cut the bottoms out and use them as my robot arms as a kid.
Honestly, you know what it was then? There wasn't much going on. There wasn't a lot of bad things. It was like an age of innocence. It was after post-World War II. There was no wars going on. So it was kind of this tranquil period in America. And everybody had a job. Everything was stable.
You know what? I don't know if you could say there was not things going on. In the 70s, growing up in New
We just
York,
didn't know about it as a kid.
We
We
nearly
just
bankrupt.
your own little universe.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We just lived. Right, we lived because there was not that much news. When you were a kid and you got on television, and they talked about somebody kidnapping a kid or something, that was like the only news you heard for the next month. We remember killers like the Son of Sam and all that stuff. I was living in New York at the time, and I remember all that stuff. But that kind of scared you. But I guess at the same time, there was a world of innocence where you lived basically your life revolved. If you started reading a comic book, you were able to immerse yourself
Yeah.
into that comic book and
Oh
become
yeah.
part of, like, if it was a movie. Like I remember
Right.
reading Richie Rich and Casper, and I thought I was inside the damn comic book. It was fascinating. I would, every night before going to bed, I would read them. And anytime I would order something in the mail, the thing that I loved the most was the fact, and this is what people tell me today, Eddie, it's not what you're selling product is, but the unknown, the mystery behind what you expected and didn't get, but you made in your mind,
Oh,
you
me
made
and
some
Todd could
type
tell
of
the people
image
what we
of what
didn't
you
get.
thought you would get.
The mystery.
And,
Eddie keeps talking. He could
oh,
sell you anything because I'm ready to buy something from him. I don't even know what he's talking about.
He's got an empty box for you. He'll sell it to you. It's a low price of $59.99.
Holy smokes, Eddie! You could sell anything. You're in the wrong field.
No, but I will say, because I grew up in the middle of the country where there was nothing going on. I mean, so if for me, and I think for most people from our generation, though, if we were going to be entertained, we had to entertain ourselves. There was nothing that, they couldn't like park you in front of a video game, or there was no place that you could go to be entertained. You had to come up with your own entertainment, be that, riding your bike or going to the pond or reading a comic book or drawing pictures. And we've lost a lot of that over the years.
Well, that's interesting. Once you get a bicycle, then you have transportation. Then you could really start getting into trouble and doing things.
Right.
You know something interesting? Robert and myself grew up in an area that were very, even though I grew up in Manhattan,
It's a
my
suburb
aunt
of New York.
was up in the Paramus area since the 1940s, and we would come.
Well, no,
Right.
northern
No,
New Jersey.
we used
Everybody's
to go
parents
up in
worked in New York. We were
Paramus
really
is
a
in New Jersey.
suburb
What do you mean
of. We're 10
suburb?
minutes outside of the city.
Oh, basically, so what happened is we used to go to a store named Two Guys. Now, I don't know if out in the Midwest they might have had Two Guys. Two Guys, the owners of Two Guys are what today is called Vornado Industries. So Vornado LLC, what is LTD, which is the largest land holdings in the world or the country. Vornado owns a lot of the malls. Well, they started, the original owners that are still, I think one of them is still alive, or the two, were two Jewish brothers. And they started Two Guys. Back at the time, they realized that there was more money in land by, leasing the land than there was with a five and dime store. But Two Guys in the early 60s and 70s always used to have a little section that had video games and like where you could play, what were those things called? Those pool tables, remember?
Foosball?
That you threw the ball for 10 cents, you would put it in.
Oh, like air hockey.
Skee ball.
No, the one that we played in when we were little. We used to go to
skee
Two
ball.
Guys. No, not air hockey. They had
you throw
it was
the ball.
bowling,
It was like a
the little
bowling alley
bowling
at
thing.
an angle.
Yeah.
It was skee
all
ball, right? Remember, you used to take the ball.
Right.
Right.
Well, Eddie
And
was
we
from New
had that.
York.
We
I'm
had
from
that.
New
Don't you remember that
Jersey,
as a
but
kid?
we grew up in the same
me
place
and you
because he
went
would
to
be
the
there
same
on
store,
weekends.
I
We started
guess.
talking about that. We all did the same thing. I guess as kids, you did the same thing. So he really grew up. His life was really in New Jersey. We didn't know each other.
Now, Doc,
Exactly.
did you know him as a
He was
child?
in the hospital. And then you start talking to him, and you get
Oh,
dragged
okay.
into
I
all
didn't
this
know-
stuff. And this is 30 years later.
I didn't know if he tried to sell you stuff. He would see you at the arcade and try to sell
no,
you,
we didn't know
some magical.
This was later on.
Fish or a lady in his
Like
30s.
he's still doing the same stuff now he was doing 30 years ago. Just having like a good time. He had like a little gang of friends and all.
Well, here's the funny thing. It's probably a little over 30, a lot over 30. But one time in the hospital, they asked me if I could display my collection. So I always went to to Robert and the office, my wife. We always went to see him as, my medical doctor. But always a very serious individual, always businesslike.
He became
He
a
saw my
you bring back
collection in the
yeah,
hospital. He
I don't know.
couldn't stop
That's
talking
interesting.
ever
You
since.
talk about comics. I never thought about this while you're reading because it takes you into a fantasy world.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It did. It did me. In fact, my favorite were
Oh,
Richie
right.
Rich and Casper. And then I started reading the Archies because the Archies was kind of like
One
you
time,
had the
Eddie, you were
girls
talking
in
about
there
something.
and
You
you thought
said,
you
well,
were
the
like the
box is
Archie
worth more
guy.
than the toy.
It was very
I said, how
fascinating.
could a box be
especially
worth anything?
Yeah, 'cause nobody kept them.
That part I never understood.
Oh,
that's the
there's
truth.
boxes. I mean, of collectibles that people pay top dollar for just the boxes, especially if it's in, great condition because
Yeah.
they're harder to find. A lot of people kept
Who
the
would
toys
keep
and
the
then
box,
tossed out
though?
the
Nobody
box.
would keep a box.
Yeah, they're very, very rare.
That's why they're so highly collectible.
Yep.
Right now, and we know Todd had the famous Lost in Space robot from the 60s. Todd, the Lost in Space robot, there was one selling on eBay about
Yeah.
2 weeks ago
Unbelievable.
for $140. I think it went for 240, just the empty
Well, the
box,
same thing with
Yeah,
the
it's
comics. Who would buy a
which
comic
is it's
and not
crazy.
rip it up to pieces? Who would have
And
a mint condition comic? It's just like it doesn't make any sense.
well, this is kind of crazy. As we had Alan in one of the previous, Alan is Jeff. He's the treasure guy, the diver. We
Right.
had him in one of the recent shows, and he was saying how back in 1985, 86, he had, I think it
he
was
had a whole
Action
bunch of
Comics number
expensive
10 or
ones.
something, and he had a bunch of, expensive one that he sold the whole collection for 6,000, including the Fantastic Four number 1. I think he had Hulk 1. And then he says, Eddie, right now, when I look
Oh,
back and I
he
see that each of them are
kicks
worth like
himself.
$100,000,
But that's like with
he
baseball
goes,
cards too. I mean, who didn't get baseball cards or football cards and
Okay.
stick them on their bike to make some noise? And now they're worth, a lot of them are worth, a lot of money. Same thing with comic books. You rolled them up, put them in your back pocket, or, your buddy said, "Hey, I caught a frog." You're like, "Well, I'll trade you this comic to look at the frog," and something stupid like that. Who would have known as a kid? But obviously, there was, people that saved their stuff for one
Who would
reason
have
or,
this stuff?
or
Like the
another.
guy that
And
owned the store that sold the comics, or like just a fanatic person or something?
we got to remember that. I mean, people have been collecting for decades. But a lot of it, especially with the comic books of the golden age, you had, there was a lot of the push during the war to, recycle your paper and all that stuff. So a lot of the comics got destroyed. Parents would destroy the comics. So there's, a lot of them are very rare if someone, had to keep them or whatnot. So there's
So you got
a ton
somebody
of
who's like
different
a hoarder or
reasons.
something like that would just keep collecting this stuff. That's somebody like that would have this.
Yeah, somebody like Eddie Guevara.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey guys, I hate to
knew
butt
he
in
would
here,
bring
but
me
we got
up.
about 2
Oh,
minutes here,
God.
so
gee, all right.
I'm going to wrap it up here real quick. This was a quick conversation, man, and definitely fun. But I want to thank the doctor for being here again, and our newcomer Jeff. Very appreciative for you coming on. Todd, it's always a pleasure, and hearing about the sea monkeys, and Eddie, always a pleasure. For everybody out there, thank you for listening to us. Check us out on YouTube under House of the Unusual. We have a ton of different videos out there. Eddie's always putting some different videos of magic and mail order stuff. So click on there, subscribe to our channel, push that like button and give us some support. Could also head on to houseoftheunusual.com. We have a free forum site there. You could sign up and join and meet some like-minded people, talk with them and have a good time. There's always some interesting conversations. And if you want to be a guest or you want to hear a specific topic, let us know on the forums, and we'll try to definitely accommodate that. So that's wrapping up the end of this podcast. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for being on here. Very appreciative of it. And this was a excellent and very fun
Thanks,
conversation.
guys. It was nice
So
to meet you,
thank
too.
all right. Thank you. Here's the difficult part. This show is so exciting. How can you fall asleep after this?
Thank you, gentlemen.
I got to work
It's a pleasure
tomorrow.
here.
That's right. rewind it and listen again. So,
All right. Bye-bye.
all right, guys. Good night. Thanks for coming on.